is time to review The Empire's Bladesmen by Clay Vagrant. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is a book review for The Empire's Bladesmen, Forbidden Relics. This is by Clay Vagrant. This book was an Asian-inspired historical military fantasy with a lot of action scenes and a unique take on vampires. Before we jump into the review itself, make sure you're checking the description box down below for links to my Discord and social media should you want to come along for the ride. We start by following Xiao Lian. He is a young warrior and he's loyal to the Ming Empire. He's one of the Empire's Imperial Brocade Guards, and he's given his life to the Emperor and his country. His task seems simple, although big: to find, track, and take down the Bloodfoot Syndicate by whatever means necessary. At the head of the Bloodfoot Syndicate is Yang Bao. He is a notorious criminal known for using unconventional methods to get to the top of his game. Only this time, he has gone too far. Bao wants the Empire to pay after everything he holds dear was stripped from him as a young man. Bao seeks the power of the supernatural from the ancient tomb hidden in the depths of the desert, and it soon becomes apparent that it was hidden for a good reason. Bao unleashes an ancient evil to gain control over 10 less syndicates in order to climb to power. But soon, too much blood has been shed, and there is no way of controlling the beasts that have been unleashed. Bao and Lian will need to work together to put their differences aside to save the Empire and everyone in it. This book feels like an Asian-inspired Indiana Jones almost. We've got some of those tomb-like discoveries and things that go bump in the night throughout the book, and it did feel like a grand adventure with a whole bunch of cool fight scenes in it. If you're looking for a fresh take on the classic vampire story where the creatures are scary and not sexy, then this is a book you might want to check out. I will admit The Empire's Bladesmen is not my favorite read of the year so far, but it has done some cool things while playing with an older trope. The author has incorporated an almost alternate history aspect in this book while talking about their version of vampires. We have an ancient tomb that has been sealed for a very good reason. We have the classic insatiable bloodlust once they awaken from their slumber, but the way that these beasts multiply and then create factions of their own felt rather unique to the vampire story. The creatures themselves made way for some short and sharp horror elements within the tale, which I really did enjoy. It added to the depth of the book, in my opinion, which is very action heavy, but when they were on the page, it paved the way for some horrific but epic action sequences. Another thing I'll mention here is if you like an action-heavy book, you like a fast-paced read, you're probably going to have a fairly good time here. The reader never had to wait too long for action in The Empire's Bladesmen. Whether the factions were fighting amongst themselves, as crime syndicates often do, or the characters were facing the bigger threat throughout the story, there was plenty to keep me entertained the whole way through. The sequences, in my opinion, were fairly well thought out and read quickly. The combination of martial arts, ranged weaponry, and traditional feeling fighting felt tactical in execution, meaning that our characters really had to think about their actions while they were in these situations, because they were dealing with creatures that were not human and were so much more powerful than they were, to try and get some form of advantage, and the stakes were high the whole way through, because sometimes when you're being swarmed by a group of vampire-like beings, the advantages are few and far between. Because of the tactical elements of the way Xiao Lian and his group, as well as Yang Bao and the people that he brought under his crime syndicates, had to think about how they were going to fight these creatures, it really did add to that military aspect to the story and that tactical aspect that we needed to fight these beings. Personally, I really liked the rooftop sequences, so there was a lot of, particularly with Xiao Lian's character, looking to gain some sort of advantage and to do intelligence and gain information about what they were doing. There were these rooftop hopping sequences and even battles on the roofs to gain any sort of vantage point. They were really fun. They're probably my favorite aspects of the action sequences, and I had a good time with those. I do like a bit of roof hopping, apparently. Now, I will say there were a few things in this book which did not work for me personally. The first thing I do want to mention is there was a disconnect, in my opinion, between the tone of the story and then some of the language that was used in the book itself. So there were a few phrases that would come up here and there which felt too modern for the tone of what we were doing, or for even the tone of any historical novel. One that comes to mind is the one that happened the most frequently, is there would be a battle scene and then someone would fall on their butt. We're dealing with ancient weaponry, we're dealing with historical, fictional world, and then just to have some person being like, and he fell on his butt, and then moved on. It was a little bit weird for me. It did take me out of the story when those happened. There was another point in the book where someone used the word hella, as in, I don't know. I don't know how to explain how the word hella is used. I'm just going to assume that people know. And that was towards the end of the book. And it just had me thinking, like, was that a placeholder for something that needed to be edited that didn't get taken out? But it just threw me out of the book. So when these situations would arise, it would take me out of the world I was following, and it would make me think, would these characters actually have said that, given how formal the language has already been throughout the book? Fortunately, these phrases were few and far between. Just when they happened, it did take me out of the story, unfortunately. Another aspect that I didn't quite like was how elements of the real world were incorporated into the story. Sorry about that noise, the vacuum is going off. When talking about other countries or continents, some countries would have their names slightly changed just to make it more fictional. So the one I can think of is one of our side characters, Liliana, was from Europa, for Europe, and was obviously a foreign entity. But then a couple of chapters later, we would be talking about Japan and things that happened in Japan. So there was a disconnect between fiction and non-fiction for me personally, and again, it just took me out of the world a little bit. Those criticisms aside, I had a pretty good time with this book. I liked the different take on vampires. I liked the action sequences. It was fast-paced, didn't have to wait very long for an action sequence. It read fast. I quite liked a couple of the characters that we had in the story, and I think this would be a great palate cleanser series for someone who's looking for a bit of a fun adventure. I can certainly see where there are things like Jade Legacy vibes in terms of crime syndicates in an Asian-inspired setting, but it just wasn't executed as well, in my opinion. I would argue that this book, however, can be read as a standalone if you're looking to dip your toes into the world and see if it is for you. But I don't think this world is quite done with us yet as readers. In all honesty, I don't know that I will be continuing on with the series, but I do think it could prove a good palate cleanser series for someone else out there. That was The Empire's Bladesmen by Clay Vagrant. What do you think? Are you going to pick this one up? Are you looking for a vampire story that's more scary than sexy? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.